Hey, this is Augie, Augie's Locker Room. When you come to the store, you're going to see things that you've probably never seen before unless you've been to a museum. Great items that go back to the Rockney era to the present. Website, augieslockerroom.com. Visit us here or the website.
Tim O'Malley with Tim Priester following Notre Dame's final media viewing. It was a full practice viewing. It was also Parents' Day, and they had a large scrimmage yesterday, so there wasn't a lot of hitting, but I think it was still probably the most informative practice we saw. We saw plenty of formations and a lot of offense-defense work against each other, really only absent tackling to the ground.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned formations because that is going to be a real key part of Tommy Rees's offense. He's got to move people around. I think you're going to see, you can see anybody at the boundary receiver. Yeah. It can be a running back. It can be Michael Mayer. They've got to do some different things formationally. It was good to see Logan Diggs. I thought we were going to wait till next week to see Logan Diggs in a blue jersey, but he was today. He took a bit of a hit from Benjamin Morrison, took offense to that, but when you're in the blue jersey, it's time to go. But getting back to the offense, it was a struggle today, and that's why I think we need to clarify the comments yesterday. The offense beat the defense in terms of preserving or holding on to the football. They only turned it over once in scrimmage action. I find it really hard to believe that the offense just flat out lined up and beat the defense yesterday because it was a struggle today for them.
Well, if they did, then the defense figured out their entire plan of attack and absolutely eviscerated the offense today because it was a major issue for Notre Dame's offense to move the ball. Now remember, it is not tackle to the ground running, so maybe not quite as physical. Offensive
pads,
line, no pads.
Go.
But it was pretty heavy contact for the 11-on-11 period we saw. It was a solid 25 minutes. They rotated in and out. It does appear that J.D. Bertrand, Bo Bauer, and Jack Kaiser are starting linebackers. I didn't see Maris Leofau rotate in today. Now, that might be an exaggeration, but he did not rotate in the live period. In the secondary, this is probably a day-by-day thing. We thought we saw Houston Griffith more so alongside Brandon Joseph. And I do think it's relevant that the boundary corner starting and then moving to nickel was Tariq Bracy, and the field corner remained Cam Hart, but I think Clarence Lewis will have plenty of time also on the boundary.
And to be fair to the offense, they're a little more banged up. The offensive line, Jarrett Patterson eventually wheeled his way out on a little cart holding his foot up, and then the other offensive lineman, Johnson, Baker, help me out.
Michael Carmody. And Emil Wagner
came out. Yeah, so the offensive line is beaten up, and by the time they went to threes, it was really the number 2 offensive line working with the threes because they don't have enough bodies there right now. But it was Xavier Watts working with the offense. I don't know if we saw him work at all with the defense, did we? So he's in the mix. When it comes down to breaking down the receivers into a particular drill, you've got the grad assistant working with 7 walk-ons, and then the 6 healthy receivers working with Chancey Stuckey. Jaden Thomas is not one of the healthy receivers. We saw him running sprints across the back of the end zone. He's got a bit of a hamstring issue. And then Deion Colsey has the brace on the knee, and he's limping a little bit in the sprints or the jogs that he was executing.
That's the first time we've seen that in there. We've seen Colsey jog. With that, though, I had seen him previously on the bike, so at least that's trending upward, you would think. You mentioned Benjamin Morrison, and I don't want to act like this has something to do with the starting job, but Benjamin Morrison looks like the number 2 boundary corner ahead of Barnes and Riley, with Tucker is like the number 3 field corner, and those 5 rotated in. Jaden Mickey was the backup field corner and the backup nickel to Bracy. But Benjamin Morrison had a really good day.
He carries himself the same way Jaden Mickey does.
Yeah.
And that's very impressive. You mentioned Barnes. He was at safety today.
Right. And I think Barnes moving to safety had to do with Watts not being back at safety. Yep. But Barnes played some corner, some safety, versatility there. And I don't want to bury Philip Riley. Riley obviously had missed some practice time too. Yeah. So that goes into it. But we don't like talking too much about freshmen, but that's the guy that stood out, was a very aggressive Benjamin Morrison, had a couple pass breakups. And then we asked Coach Mason, special teams question, which freshmen are probably going to be in that mix. He said there will be enough that traveled that could play special teams, but no surprise, Tui Halamaka and Jaden Mickey are going to, as of now, be starters on special teams.
And we talked to Brian Mason, we talked to the specialists, and we did find out a little bit about the kicking situation. And most of what we've said up to this point has been kind of negative and how much distance. Well, Groupie hit a 53-yarder yesterday, and apparently it is no contest who will handle the kickoffs. It's not Groupie. It's not any of the other guys that were up there other than Bryce McPherson. And then I asked Brian Mason point blank, what do you expect out of him? And he said 80% touchbacks, and that'll be within the top 5 or top 5% of of the country. He's got a really, really live leg. Not consistent enough probably as a punter
Right.
to win the job over Sott, who's a very experienced punter.
And it was interesting talking to Groupie. He did mention that the spring was tough because you're trying to break in a new holder. He got John Sott to be his holder in the offseason. He has had John Sott as his holder at kicking camps, and John Sott is a 4-year holder at Harvard. So I think it's the first really positive news, and Blake Groupie did hit the one very heavy pressure kick today to get them out of tempo running periods, and I think that's something that Marcus Freeman has worked on that for the entire offseason, and I think it's really helped Groupie. He said he keeps his heart rate on his Apple Watch. He tries to track it all the time. He says it's going to be no different when he's out there in Columbus. That is it for Irish Illustrated Instant Analysis. We have practice reports coming, detailed this time because we saw about 90 minutes of action inside Notre Dame Stadium, inside the Irish Athletic Complex. This is irishillustrated.com.